Hi, folks. Got something a little special in store for you now. As I'm not going to be doing a live stream this evening, I thought I would share something from way back when I first started streaming, all the way back in the spring of 2020, when I was lucky enough to get to do an interview with the artist Darlene. Now, of course, you'll know Darlene. She created the awesome Greyhawk map and too many beautiful pieces of artwork in the Dungeons and Dragons rule books over the years to really be easily summed up. So I've got this interview, and it has been just sort of sitting on the shelf way deep down in my Facebook account. A few people watched the live stream, so you'll hear some comments back and forth, her answering some questions from people in text and that sort of thing. And I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great interview. We had a really good time talking to each other. I hope you guys will enjoy it. And then maybe someday we can get Darlene to come back and grace us with her presence again. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview with the artist Darlene from 2022. Start. There we go. We are starting now. Hey everybody, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining up and taking a look here. I am live today with Darlene the artist, or Darlene artist, and we're going to talk to her about the creative impulse, about her creations for Dungeons and Dragons, and just all sorts of things. We're gonna ramble and just have a nice friendly conversation. First of all, Darlene, thank you so much for joining us. Hello, I really appreciate you coming on. Got a hello from a couple of viewers there. James says hello to you.
Hello, James.
So, all right. So, let
me get something straight right now.
Okay, you go ahead.
My legal name is Darlene.
Okay.
Because you need two fields on the internet, I put artist there.
Ah.
But my name isn't Darlene Artist. That's my designation.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. Understood. Thank you for clarifying. Growing up and seeing your work in all the D&D books, and everybody else, had three initials or their full name or something like that, and being 12 and not thinking, well, look in the credits in the front of the book, you dope. I was just like, Darlene, that must be like Prince or
Exactly. You got it.
I got it early on. I'm very happy.
Exactly what I
When
meant. When I first started out in Lake Geneva, I belonged to the Lake Geneva Art Association.
Okay.
And every single person at that association said, only use your initials. People should not know you're a woman, you're female. And I went, that. Darlene.
Darlene. Well,
I like the way the signature was in there. Never looked back.
It is great. It is great. And I always thought it was super cool back then, because I'm like, man, everybody cool gets to work at TSR. You get, And I should point out that Darlene is also the name of my first crush I had in first grade. So, so it resonated with me. It resonated.
Oh my goodness.
So, talking about Lake Geneva early on, how did you? And I just want to clarify something that you kindly pointed out to me. You were a contractor or a freelancer for TSR, not a TSR employee. But
Right.
be that as it may, how did you become a freelancer for TSR? How did you discover them, or did they discover you?
Okay. I used to work at a place called Graphic, something graphic in Lake Geneva. And a person by the name of Mike Carr came in. Mike Carr is the game designer for Fight in the Skies, in case people don't realize it. At any rate, I got the assignment to update something called Gen Con convention. And so we worked closely, and of course I did what I needed to do as a graphic designer, and then gave it back to him. And at the end of the project, he asked me out on a date. And then we got to know each other. He says, I want to take you to show, take you to TSR and give you a tour. And that's how it began. He said, and bring your portfolio. And so I did. And the unicorn that was in the DMG as the title page was one of the pieces I had brought that day.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Sutherland looked at it and he says, I'll take this one, this one, this one. I think I met Tim Cass then. He was working downstairs when you first come in, and he had his old pipe. And I met him too. It was a eye opener, and so I got to meet everyone. It's Mike Carr was the one who introduced me to the whole shebang.
Wow. So it wasn't just a case of sniffing around and just like, okay, boom, here you are. We'll take these. Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
So, man, that's great. And when what time frame was this? This would have been
But 1977, 78, something like that.
okay. Yeah, that would kind of figure into the Dungeon Master's Guide publication.
Oh yeah.
And, so you continued freelancing for TSR for a good piece then.
Well, I mostly, as the real artist got employed, because I was there before any of Elmore or any of them got hired. When they got hired, my work for TSR dropped. But, so I got work for Dragon Publishing and for the RPGA.
Mm-hmm.
RPGA was Frank Menser, and the Dragon Publishing was under 3 editors. One was Tim Cass,
Mm-hmm.
one was Kim Mohan, one was Jake Jaques. And so I just started working for them with their serial publications.
Okay, and you bring up one of my favorite things, which is Dragon Magazine.
Yeah.
So you had the kind of your iconic character there, Jasmine, first saw publication in Dragon, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Did you? It wasn't an amazingly long run, but did you do everything with Jasmine that you had wanted to, or had you wanted to continue on?
Hell no. All right, the Jasmine story started coming through from where I have no idea. And it occurred to me to start writing it, all these snatches down.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote, and it did not come in serially. It just came in right here. I didn't even know who all the characters were, and I just kept writing it down, and I understood, like, oh, okay, I kind of put it into a framework. And then I asked if I couldn't, I got a contract from Dragon to publish it for a year, beginning in May 1980. Mm-hmm. And pretty much wrote the serial thing as it came in. If I have this is sort of, can you see it?
Yes.
That is a colorized, but the original black and white is one of the things, at any rate. It was never renewed due to a political situation, and I only figured this out. The artist told me that there was a whole lot of things that you could and you could not do. And I had no idea. I never heard of those before. But I had a scene in Jasmine where one of the male characters chopped somebody's head off with an axe.
Okay.
I thought this was pretty common with gaming, but apparently not supposed to show that. And apparently Kevin Bloom got really pissed and wanted to stop, but I had a contract. So I did the contract to the end, and they would not renew it. And I got so I thought, but there's so much more to this story. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And I thought, oh, I know. I asked Mike Carr, I says, now, of all the gaming stuff, what genre is least done? He says, card games. I thought, okay, card games. Because I figured it's going to come back. It's got to come back. So I made a card game out of the story, and I made the 4 factions that, it was pretty good. It ended up winning the Strategist Award at Gen Con, Strategist Club Award in the 9th annual. I was pleased about that, and I still have them available in case of the original print run, by the way. Sure. It's a really old game.
and as I said, man, I'm grabbing a set. I'm not missing a chance. And everybody out there, if you want, I mean, even if you're not into tabletop card games, if you want some absolutely sumptuous art, don't miss the chance. Grab yourself a copy of Jasmine.
Well, I have something more to talk about in terms of Jasmine, because
please do.
Interestingly enough, about 2018 in January, I found a box. And I thought, well, what's in this box? I opened it up, and it was all those little snippets that I had written down 30 years ago. And I thought, damn, look at all this shit. So I started publishing them on Facebook, one at a time. And it ended up being for 100 days. And people were starting to get interested in the story again. And I thought, oh, there's got to be a reason this is all happening. I'm all for synchronicity. And so I started a Patreon to finish the story of Jasmine. And I've done the Patreon now for a couple of years. And if anyone wants to see how it develops, you're welcome to be a patron.
Okay, well, you sent me some links. I'm going to share these in the chat here for some of your...
Well, it's patreon.com/Darlene_arts.
Okay, let's see.
The first one.
I'm sorry, was that arts or artist?
Artist.
All right.
Darlene_arts.
All right, that's right there in the chat. You nice folks should go check that out. And we also have, speaking of Jasmine, Oh yeah, it popped up a nice little preview thumbnail image there. Um, that's
Yeah.
nice. Now you have it. Since we're speaking of Jasmine, your is she your alter ego? Would you say she's your alter ego?
I'm sorry.
Would you say Jasmine's your alter ego?
I've been wondering about that because if you asked me 30 years ago, I said absolutely not. But now I'm kind of wondering if she is or isn't, and I'm trying to understand where in the cosmos or the ethers she comes from, and where's the story, and why is it relevant to today? And I don't have those answers, but I think it's really interesting that the story continues. So it's got to have something to do with something. Alter ego, all of the characters are me to one extent or another, even the evil ones.
Sure, it's that duality of man, right?
Right, right.
Okay, so but speaking of Jasmine, alter ego or not, you have a coloring book for Jasmine too. I'm gonna link to that there. You folks can and should check that out. Something else I'm going to pick up. It is quite lovely. So if you are so inclined to take up your own markers or crayons and color in the lines, then get yourself a Jasmine coloring book also.
I know it's recognized the figure.
Quite nice, quite nice.
I
Um,
I have other coloring books I've been doing as well. And the idea initially was to give little girls or almost anybody
mhm.
positive feminine images of powerful women to color and to think about and to embrace and honor. And that was the whole idea behind that, you know, in a more fantasy uh, vein. And
That's that
yeah,
is great. Yeah, that's
well, that's the way I was giving back to the community.
that's wonderful. That's really great. Are those is that the same link now? The Jasmine coloring book. Can we get those same link or
Um, I believe so.
okay?
I think when you click on the purchase, you on on the what do you call that? The statement, or it's listed as well. And,
Okay.
and I've got discounts going on if you buy all three.
Okay. Great. Oh, this is lovely. This this is lovely. I pulled the page up. You guys out there listening, you should definitely check this out. This is quite nice. This is quite nice. So there is I gotta I know this has been gone over in the Art and Arcana book and the associated video, but for those who maybe perhaps have been living under a rock, I have to ask you this question about the genesis of the Greyhawk map.
Okay.
So tell us the story of the Greyhawk map.
All right. This is something I did not know until last year. But apparently there was a meeting, and Gary was looking for someone to do the Greyhawk map. And another individual at TSR, I thought it was Mike, and he said, no, it was me, and it was Alan Hammock, told Dave Sutherland that he'd be a fool not to have me do it. And so you could thank Alan Hammock, uh, who was a who was a game designer at TSR,
Mhm.
for the Greyhawk map. Now you got to know I went to London to learn calligraphy from the scribe to Queen Elizabeth, but that's no big deal because there was a whole group of us doing that.
Okay.
but I wanted to learn it. I had been doing it by myself, and then I got proper instruction. And so I was doing all things English at that point. I loved the Raphaelites. I loved Art Nouveau. I liked William Blake. All of that was just deeply here. And so I drew on my inspiration when I was doing the map. What I was given was a little sketch and a whole big, and it was already glued onto a big thick board, the hexes.
Mm-hmm.
And all I had to do was translate what was on this little paper count. And so I penciled it all in, first of all. Here's where the plains are, here's where the forests are, here's where the mountains are, type thing. Put it all in there in pencil, sent it back to TSR, had them go through it, to make sure I got it right. And then they gave it back to me, and I inked it. Now, could not make a mistake.
Sure.
Which is why I sent them that, and then, erase the pencil marks after that. And then it was it was called a paste up. I don't know if anyone knows what paste ups are, but what I had to do then was take an acetate sheet, put it over the artwork, and affix these, a sheet of color. It was called Pantone color sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to take a little razor blade and cut out all of the little shapes of the trees and the mountains so that they'd have an overall color. And then I put another sheet on top of that, put a different color on, and then where it abuts, do the same thing. It was really, really, really meticulous. That took a long time. And the whole darn thing was so big, I had to almost lay on on my board to get it done. It was very unwieldy, but I got it done.
You got it done, and it is. I think one of the viewers here says the Darlene map, as I always called it, was iconographic and really helped define AD&D for me and not a few of my friends back in the day. It ranks as one of the masterpieces of the game, along with the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide covers.
Well, Gary Gygax said the same thing.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's.
Well, no, I mean, he was really pleased about it, and I remember when I was doing the map that I wanted to make sure that there would be no room for argument of what a hex was. If it's a mountain or is it plain, while making it artistic. On one of the videos I shared about the fact that I put the lettering in the mountains where you could read it, kind of doing the contour of the mountains, but I made the lettering really big so I wouldn't have to do as many mountains. It was, in the trees and stuff. It was cool.
That's, yeah. Now, for those who may not have the Greyhawk box set, or you rely on a digital copy of the map or whatever, if you're not aware, the map is gigantic. I mean, the one that we got as players, I think it's like 5 feet by 3 feet, and there's two pieces like that, and they go side by side. How big was the one you had to work on? You're talking about having to lay down flat on it.
1-to-1 ratio.
Okay. So what we got was what you worked on exactly.
Yeah.
Neat. That is so very neat.
As an aside, we were in Lake Geneva, a little town,
Mm-hmm.
but they had to go all the way to Madison, Wisconsin to find a camera big enough to take a picture of it so that the hexes were not what's the word, altered by the lens. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So there wasn't like focal distortion on it.
Right. And that was a challenge.
Man, that is that's
It's wild.
yeah, that's a pretty serious amount of work, and of course, digital wasn't even a
oh God,
pipe dream back then.
Until what, 15 years later, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys
not common, at least. Yeah.
did it that way.
I'm aging myself here.
Oh. My mother-in-law, she worked for a printing company for several years. She jokes that she's a stripper. She's a professional stripper because she would reduce images. And, yeah.
The terminology exactly. I know what she did.
And even though they were a shop, they had Silicon graphics machines and Macintoshes. Still in the 1990s, before she retired, they were still working with, putting things up on boards and
Right.
and doing it. I mean, sometimes there's just no substitution for rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty with your work.
I wonder what they do nowadays, because I found I do graphics still, but it's on computer, and you really can't tell what you got until you print it off and look at it.
Yep, that's very true, and I mean.
And then only when you print it off and look at it will you find the mistakes. It's a while, but it's true.
Things that look crystal clear and picture perfect and exact ratio and nice and crisp on a monitor, you print it out and it's a blurry mess. It can happen. So, doing it all by hand. And
not a blurry mess exactly, but you'll see things that some things don't translate. Or you think it looks like one thing and the ratio is a little off or whatever.
Sure.
But it's all good.
Yeah. Hello from Luke Gygax. He says, hello, Darlene.
Hi, Luke.
So nice to see you on Facebook.
Well, Luke knows I'm really shy. I seldom do these things.
Well, I'm so lucky that and so appreciative that you
well, it took you a while to get me to say yes, I know.
Just pull you in eventually. You will come on my show. Oh gosh. Let's see. So moving along, obviously your art life did not begin and end at TSR in a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons and Dragon magazines. What if you've got 10 or 15 minutes to talk about the last 40 years, what's been going on?
Oh my. When I left Lake Geneva, I went back to school. I went to Indiana University. And the way I found Indiana University is there was a calligraphy seminar to Italy that would be a whole 4 months, and I went to it. I thought, this is the bee's knees, I'm going to go. And I spent four months in Italy learning calligraphy, bookbinding, and going all over the Italian cities, just drinking in art. And by the end of that, I knew enough people, and somebody from Indiana University and I became friends. And he talked me into visiting him. And when I was visiting Bloomington, Indiana, there was an exhibition on, and and it was a graphics exhibition, and I was telling my friend what I thought about this, that, and the other thing, and there's this guy behind me kind of listening, and then he comes up and asks me questions, and I'm just telling him my opinion on this, that, and the other thing, and he says, by what authority are you giving your opinion? I said, by the authority of my eyes. I found out later he's the head of the graphics department. And I was critiquing one of his students, what a senior show, or at any rate, he offered my brazenness about it. He offered me to become a grad student there, and I took him up on it. So when I left Lake Geneva, I was a grad student in graphic design, the graphic arts at Indiana University. But I took that opportunity to learn about everything I wanted to know, oh dear, about art. Oh well, it'll ring.
That's okay.
And let's see, where was I? So I was doing art. The illustration, I learned more about illustration. I learned about Islamic calligraphy, which I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about, a whole Gothic typefaces. And my thesis was on the relationship between type and calligraphy, the historical relationship, and there is one. So I just love learning, and it gobbled the whole thing up. At that moment in time, I was married to Michael Price, who was also a TSR game designer, and I went out east, and he was working for Coleco at the time. Mm-hmm. And as many of the TSR artists, when that broke up, they scattered all over. And I was just doing graphics work mostly during that moment. And let's see. Then I went to North Carolina, and I started learning esoteric stuff. I met my future husband, Vincent Bridges, mm-hmm. and and then I had a really wild few years learning things that I never knew existed about magic, the occult, possibilities, about energy, about sacred geometry, and I redid a 15th century angelic alphabet, redesigned it to make more sense. I've done a lot of really strange and weird things, and that's kind of a part of me now.
That is great. That's great.
What? Go ahead.
No, it's just so of all that. I mean, you've run the gamut of visual art. What's your favorite medium to work in?
Well, at the moment, I'm exploring working on the computer, digital.
Okay.
I'm doing something I'm calling digital collage.
Okay.
I have an idea in my head. Oh, the cat's here.
Yeah, my co-host is down here at my feet. I'm sure she'll pop up on camera soon enough.
It's the tail. I'll have an idea in my head, and then I'll block it out, and then I'll kind of look for images in general that this is only for color work. Mm-hmm. That sort of look like what I have, and then I'll take several different kinds of images and put them together so that it looks like a continuous thing. Let's see. I do have an example.
Great, bring it on.
Here's an example.
Oh, and that's a lovely piece. That's your header you use on so many of your projects.
Yeah. So that was one of my first, and it's just little pieces here and there, and nothing. You'd never find the whole thing. Oh, it's just really difficult to talk about, but I'm trying to. It's sort of like mock realism or ultra realism, but it's made of many different layers and many different things coming in and out. That when I flatten it, it finally looks like a complete piece. And it's kind of stiff, but the colors and the vision is mine. And when I don't have something that I can use, I just draw it in or complete it by myself. So I don't know where. And the images I use are very fuzzy. And I usually work 300 DPI, but things you get is 72 DPI. So I actually end up working with every single pixel when I'm clarifying it, so that I could put myself in there and do the contours the way I want to. It gives it a more realistic look.
Sure. Sure. That reminds, I think, if I may venture, there's an artistic technique pioneered by a Japanese artist, Hajime Sorayama, hyperrealism, where you get a lot of like the water in the photo that you just showed with those specular highlights. It looks like one could dip one's hand into the painting and scoop up water and feel it flowing between your fingers and everything. And I think that's a bit like that, but he does more figure studies and that sort of thing. But
Right.
so this is all very, if I may be so bold, very you.
Yeah.
It's very you. But do you have artistic influences that you've taken and say, I've got to grab onto some of that? What do you have a handful of influences that have kind of, well, influenced you?
Well, I was like at the beginning when I first started out with the pre-Raphaelites, the arts and crafts movement, certain children's book illustrators like Kay Nielsen, Arthur Rackham,
Oh,
um, Edmund Dulac, and I anything I see that just inspires me. I don't nowadays. I'm inspired by what you say, the Japanese anime. That really, but I'm not an animator, so I can only just look and see, look really hard and see where they're going with their perspective and how they're telling the story through the waves of the water and stuff. That's informing my Jasmine work.
okay.
But of course, it's two-dimensional instead of whatever you'd call anime.
Sure. No, I got you. And kind of along those same lines in parallel, uh, do you prefer that your art speak for itself, even if the viewer finds something in it that you had never considered, or do you have a set explanation of it, or are both equally valid to you?
Both are equally valid, and this gets me into a point where I believe that art is energy. Art is energy. And I have been trained, all right, I'll say it. I was born into a family of psychics,
Okay.
both sides, and I'm the result. And so I have never had my third eye closed. So most people think I'm slightly weird, but I can appreciate things beyond the superficial. And my art contains that vision. And it can speak to people on an energetic level. And so I've advanced the idea enough so that if you are working on a coloring book, my coloring book, and you want to, say, get the experience of being a powerful magician or a powerful maiden of whatever, if you color it in with intent, the energy I put in it will come to you. You just got to be open enough. And that, I think, is the next place where art will go, is the energetic permeation of what the artist's intent and what the, it becomes a language, a conversation between me, my energy, and the viewer or the colorer or whatever. I've only learned that this is a fact because I've heard so much feedback from people who will tell me that my art meant so much to them while they were growing up, the energy, and that they could look at something and go inside it. And they told me that they really experienced something. And I started listening finally to my fans, and I thought, well, maybe they have something. And they pointed it out to me, and then I started really looking at it. I thought, well, what can I do to help the next generation, even when I'm dead? And I think that's my answer.
Well, that I think you've been peeking over my shoulder and looking at my notes, because that actually goes right into the next question. And this is a big chunk to break off here from one of our viewers who asks, do you have any advice for novice artists who want to explore the fantasy genre or really any genre there? Do you think it's valuable to let oneself be influenced from the outset? And if so, how do you transcend that influence? Or does it just kind of happen? Or is your own style something that should be consciously worked towards from the get-go? Or is it just different for everyone?
Well, I would imagine it's different for everyone. But I would still start with nature and have a feeling for, so you're sitting down and you're doing a tree, or you're doing a figure drawing. So if you're doing a figure drawing and there's somebody there doing a pose, if you strike the same pose yourself to figure out what muscles are hurting or what's being, you'll be able to have more informed sketch. If you're going out there in nature and you're feeling the breeze and feeling the bark and having an experience of a dialogue with that tree, you'll be able to feel the essence of it. It may not look exactly like the tree, but if you can get the essence of it, then you've got something transcendent and something that speaks. Now, if you take that further inside yourself, and you can create worlds, and that's where the fantasy comes in, and the space and the technology. Now, I'm really bad at doing gears and cars and stuff like that, but there are people who are really good with that, and I don't know how they approach it, but I'm sure that they have some kind of understanding of machinery that I don't, and that translates for them. I do know, however, that machines, some of them have souls. They have to. I ran a print press when I was working with Toshiba. I was working with Toshiba as their printer. And there was one press that I worked on that would run, and whenever the certain salesman walked in, it would go kaflooey every single time, ever. So I knew that the machine really didn't like that guy.
Well, I'm going to tell you something to back that up. And one of the viewers watching right now is an old work colleague of mine and a swell guy, Randy Buckness. And Randy and I both worked in the same IT shop, and we can tell you we would get users call us to their desks and say this isn't happening, and we'd walk in, sit down, couple of mouse clicks, press the enter key, and it works. And they would stare at us and say, "I did exactly the same thing," and would go back to our help desk. And
Wicked sense of humor, my God. It's true. It's
yes.
true. It's weird. Yes.
Our standing explanation was they know us and they fear us. Here comes Bill with a pocket full of screwdrivers. Or worse yet, he's got a new desktop on a cart. I better start shaping up, or else he's going to swap me out. But no, I definitely think there's something to the machine spirit that can be cannot be just hand waved away. Oh my gosh. So let me see here. Let me scroll through these. I think that just about covers. Do you have any opinion on mainstream RPG art these days at all?
No,
nope.
I don't have an opinion.
Okay, then we move on.
Go and do well.
Now, one thing, and I brought this up to you. I can't remember if it was on Facebook chat or if it was an email, but it was one of those places. I do have a friend whose wife is a therapist, and she wants to get some of your Jasmine coloring books to use in art therapy. And you said you would wanted to talk about the transformative nature of art in that context. So take the ball and run.
Have at it. Well, remember I have the new Jasmine out.
Mm-hmm.
In this coloring book, I start out where I talk about the symbology of color,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go, when I have each of the figures, I talk about the different symbols of varying aspects
Mm-hmm.
of what the axe means, what the headgear means, what the tree means. And then I also have suggested meditations, so that when you're drawing or you're working with a particular part of the drawing, and you focus on this, you can actually do self-healing by understanding the color you're using, the intent behind it, what you want to change in your life, what you want to be aware of, and it's sort of like a self-help kind of thing. That it's another idea that's kind of like coming in at the moment. I don't know where it comes from, but I've been feeling more and more that there's something to the fact that when children first start coloring, there's more happening than just the physical thing going on. That their interaction with color is exciting something else in their brain. And I don't know, I mean, I've been trying to do research on it, but I decided to go with my intuition and create something that addresses that. Of course, you can color it without any of that, knowing any of that, and that's perfectly fine. But I decided to take it to the next level to see what would happen. And I think it would be an excellent tool for therapists. And if there's any therapists out there, I'd love to get in contact with them and see what we can do. Get more people engaged with their own healing, their own self-help. I mean, I've got something about father issues. You want to heal your father issues. Well, there's a page for that. Mother issues too.
And well, that's one of the things, and this, trust me, to our viewers, listeners, this is not just a discourse between Darlene and I. You should absolutely heed, because again, my friend, therapist wife, he actually purchased one or two of your coloring books at Gary Con, brought them home, said, hey, I thought you might like to take a look at these, and beyond just it was very good for her and in her work. I can't really give you a context, but it was enough that she wants to purchase many more copies from you. So if you're someone out there, you're listening, you're watching, whatever, try Darlene's coloring books. They are they are helpful and transformative. And I say that, I am not kidding. I think that's a wonderful thing, and it shows that art can be so much more than just something to bumper pages
Something
of
to
text.
look at. It's more than something to look at.
Oh yeah. And you talked about something, and I kind of want, it does relate to this, but I do kind of want to jump back to D&D. I can't think of a person that I knew growing up, or even now as adults. I mean, we're a little frosty here and here, but we still love our Dungeons and Dragons. You know what they say, it ain't the years, it's the miles. But I don't know of a person who didn't crack the Dungeon Master's Guide for the first or 10,000th and first time and see images, the knights meeting what I always thought was a dryad there, the wonderful full page plate that you did. Or There Is No Honor Among Thieves, or again the succubus in the back of the book, who didn't look at your drawings to that book and not spin an adventure in their heads, something to introduce the players to a hazard or a help or just an encounter. The simplest of illustrations or the most grandiose of illustrations can launch 1,000 inspirational ideas for someone at the tabletop and beyond, far beyond. I am sure there's people who have never touched a 20-sided dice in their life who are going to see your coloring book and your prints and so on and be just as enthralled as we basement dwelling Cheeto finger kids were back in 79 and 80 and then on.
It's a portal into yourself.
It really is. It really is. And as I said at Gary Con, to yourself and to everyone else who was at the artist panel, I mean, the rules, certainly they opened that door. We could step beyond just daydreaming or watching a movie or reading a comic book where we just kind of go down rails into full-fledged experiential thing, but the art blew that door the rest of the way open. Not just not just one drawing, but all the artwork that you guys brought to us.
Right.
So I definitely there's, and just my opinion as a kind of non-artistic guy, there's an undeniable truth though to to use that word again, the transformative effect of art and your art as you bring it to the world, be it looking at things in the past or things that you're doing now.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you, I should say, for all the wonderful years of art. And what's in the future? What have you got lined up? You gonna keep on keeping on, or are you looking in new directions? Or are you the digital collage? I almost invented a new word there, collography.
Well, at the moment, I'm focusing most of my energy on the Patreon, the story of Jasmine, continuing that, seeing. I mean, a lot of new information is coming in. It's blowing my mind. And I'm going, oh, wow, that's cool. Well, I don't know what that means.
So are we going to get like a fully published Jasmine volume? I hope.
Well, yes. Right now, I was going to publish the story behind the story of Jasmine. And that really takes me up to my thoughts and philosophies at the time I was doing Jasmine in the 1980s. And I had taken about a year and a half to redo all of those early issues, because the published versions are so washed out and badly printed that I felt honor bound to make a better digital thing. And they're going to be on published in Kindle published very soon, as I just finishing up the last, and then I have to decide where to cut it off to continue, where I'm gonna
chapter break.
And so it's Jasmine is an ongoing project, and I'll let you know when the Kindle version is up.
Oh, please do.
Available.
Please do.
Right.
I am very much looking forward to that. There was another question, and let me check my email real quick to make sure I didn't. Let's see. I think we've hit all the great
The highlights, right.
the great point. Is there anything else that you wanna touch on?
Well, probably 5 minutes after we're and I'll figure something out.
Well, I tell you, this has been a joy, and since I've coaxed you out once, I would be willing to bet you'd come back again. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just to twist your arm a little bit. But no, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here, and I'm not gonna lie, I had to seriously rein in my temptation to completely geek out just about Dungeons and Dragons nonstop, which I'm sure you absolutely didn't want me to do. So it has been wonderful to talk to you. And just to hear so much about your point of view of your art and how it speaks to you beyond just, okay, well, I've drawn this piece and now I set it aside. I mentioned this to a few friends before, and I think I hope as an artist, you being an artist, that is, this doesn't sound too kooky, but like I paint miniatures, and there's a degree of art to it. But when I paint, sometimes I'll say, okay, I just went out and I bought this lovely, warrior woman with spear. Okay, I'm going to paint that up. And then I'll set it down and I'll look someplace else on the table, and this little voice says, no, me. Paint me. Paint me instead. And I was like, okay. And I set that one aside and I start painting the one, and before I know it's done, and a few hours, and I'm sorry, I had to listen to this one over here. You know,
that's the way it works. That's beautiful, and
yeah.
that's probably more of what I would tell budding artists to do, is to listen to that inner voice.
Okay.
It's a dialogue between you and the universe, and it's beautiful. Develop that, and you'll never go wrong with your art or with anything, actually.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, I think we will go ahead and call it an afternoon. I've had so much fun talking to you, though. I please do come back, and I promise I'll be better prepared, and we'll talk about some more art stuff in the future.
All right,
okay.
that's a deal.
All right. Since I twisted your arm. Well, thank you very much again, and I'm going to send you some email from my therapist friend about getting the Jasmine coloring books. And all of you folks out there watching and listening, please check the links that are in the chat that I've linked to Darlene's Patreon and the Jasmine Journey coloring book, and go out there and support a fantastic artist. I'm sorry?
I have an art store.
An art store, yes. The art store should be linked there.
The art store should be one word.
Okay.
If you don't have it, it's go.darlenemarketing.com/art store.
Okay. That's why it was, okay.
That's why it's not working.
Yeah. Art store was 2 words on the link.
Yeah.
So let me just fix that for everyone to get to, and you can go right there. And yep, link is up. Ta-da! All right. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again real soon, okay?
Excellent.
Thank you. Have a swell day. Bye-bye.
Everybody. Mwah.
Mwah. Well, I'm sure folks may be listening out there and wondering why the screen just went black. I will try and get my camera up here for some parting words. Let's see. Logitech, can we do that? Can we open this one? Here, let's close Zoom. And let's open Logitech. Well, thank you everyone for being here today and for listening and watching today. Let me deactivate and activate. Will that work? Yeah, there we go. All right. So that was a lot of fun. I certainly enjoyed talking to Darlene, and I hope you folks enjoyed listening. And as always, this show will be linked. You will be able to watch it if you missed some of it. Fear not, the whole live stream today, as all my live streams, are up. Have a wonderful day. I love you all. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you, Darlene, for watching for participating in the show, and if you watch it later, watching the show. So I am your handsome and humble host, Bill Solvey. This has been Crazy Gibberish, and y'all have a absolutely swell day. Peace.